Welcome. Have you ever wondered how one of the smallest links in our body can determine the state of our entire health? Today we will dive into the fascinating world of a compound that is simultaneously produced by our body, present in food, and a powerful tool in modern supplementation. This is trimethylglycine, or TMG for short, also known as Betaine TMG. For most people, trimethylglycine is just a complicated chemical name they have never encountered before. For many people interested in contemporary dietetics and supplementation, it is another, perhaps slightly mysterious, substance with health-promoting potential. Today, I will show you that it is a key biochemical switch which, when used at the right time and in the right dose, can support muscle building, accelerate fat burning, and, most importantly, influence the length and quality of our lives. This is a journey not just for those who treat, but for everyone who wants to understand how their own survival mechanism works. Get ready for a deep dive into biochemistry whose practical benefits you will feel in your daily life. At this point, I would like to remind you that this material is purely for health education purposes and does not constitute a diagnosis or individual medical consultation. In case of health problems, consult a doctor or other qualified healthcare professional. Decisions regarding your health should be made after a thorough analysis of your health status by a specialist. Let's return to the topic. I will start by telling you why I affectionately call trimethylglycine the biochemical switch of life. Let's begin with what trimethylglycine is from a chemical perspective. It is a methylated form of the amino acid glycine. It sounds complicated, but the key lies in the word methylated. In practice, this means that trimethylglycine carries as many as 3 methyl groups, which it is able to easily donate to our body. And this is where we get to the crux of the matter, one of the most important processes in every cell of our body, which is methylation. The methylation process can be thought of as a switch in the DNA. When methylation occurs correctly, it turns on desired adaptations, activates specific genes, and regulates countless cellular functions. You could say that methylation activates the appropriate functions in our system, from tissue regeneration, such as muscles, to DNA repair. The opposite of methylation is demethylation, which turns this switch off. Therefore, a healthy life, healthy aging, building muscle mass, and effective fat burning are a delicate but crucial balance between methylation and demethylation. Every person needs a rich methyl pool for the key processes of methylation and demethylation to occur efficiently. This means the body must have an adequate amount of methyl donors, which are substances that transfer methyl groups such as trimethylglycine, folates, vitamin B12, or choline. When the methyl pool is insufficient, mood disturbances, fatigue, concentration problems, weakened immunity, poorer liver function, and even an increased risk of cardiovascular diseases may appear. And here is a question for you. Have you ever felt a rapid drop in energy, difficulty with regeneration, or brain fog despite a good diet, physical activity, and adequate sleep? Leave your answer in the comments. This may be a signal that your methyl pool needs support. So, what benefits does an adequate amount of trimethylglycine in the body bring? Let's start with what is visible to the naked eye. Trimethylglycine is one of the few compounds that simultaneously supports anabolism, such as muscle building, and catabolism, which is fat burning. This effect was previously reserved for the world of very advanced and often controversial pharmacology. But in today's episode, we are going to explore how TMG can change the rules of the game in the medical education world. Firstly, there is fat burning, A published meta-analysis and systematic review in the prestigious journal Nutrients showed that taking trimethylglycine significantly reduced fat mass and the percentage of body fat. Surprisingly, this did not affect overall body weight or BMI. This means that the supplement precisely targets fat tissue while maintaining or even building muscle mass. So, what are the mechanisms of this action? Studies suggest that trimethylglycine has a triple impact on the body. The first mechanism is the inhibition of the production of white adipose tissue or subcutaneous fat, which in excessive amounts becomes a problem not only of an aesthetic nature. Trimethylglycine also supports mitochondrial biogenesis and increases the amount of brown adipose tissue, that desirable fat tissue that dissipates stored energy as heat, increasing thermogenesis. It is also a substance that reduces insulin resistance. This is probably the most important for us humans because improving insulin sensitivity is the main factor influencing better muscle protein synthesis and less fat accumulation. Secondly, trimethylglycine plays an incredibly important role in muscle building. Another key study published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition showed that in people training and taking a relatively low dose of 2.5 grams of trimethylglycine daily, muscle mass gain was about 1 kilogram greater than in the group receiving a placebo over the same period. This study also revealed a very interesting phenomenon that can be described as the water retention paradox. Analyzing the results of the study described just now, the researchers observed an astonishing phenomenon. The group of athletes receiving a placebo retained more intracellular water in the muscles. On contrast, the group taking trimethylglycine gained more lean muscle mass without additional water retention. This overturns the intuitive view that increased muscle mass must go hand in hand with water retention. It shows that the amazing trimethylglycine molecule acts at the metabolic level, supporting factors such as insulin-like growth factor and the AKT pathway, which is directly related to muscle protein synthesis. And now let's look at the effect of trimethylglycine on longevity and its connection with homocysteine levels. Let's move on to the topic of longevity then. Probably the most important, though often overlooked effect of trimethylglycine is its ability to regulate homocysteine levels. And homocysteine is an amino acid that in excess becomes toxic and is a strong predictor of serious health problems. I will cite a very important statistic here based on a study involving over 27,000 people, which showed that high homocysteine levels were associated with an 80% increase in all-cause mortality compared to people who had low levels. Every increase in homocysteine levels by just 5 micromoles per liter means as much as a 33% increase in the risk of death. This is an incredibly high indicator. Homocysteine is an important health marker that is still ignored and overlooked in assessing the risk of many diseases. Its elevated level can significantly increase the probability of life-threatening events such as a heart attack or stroke. It is a compound naturally formed in the body during protein metabolism, but its excessive concentration indicates disturbances in methylation processes, deficiencies of B vitamins, oxidative stress, or problems with the functioning of the vascular and nervous systems. Although homocysteine is one of the best documented indicators of cardiovascular risk, it is not included in the standard panel of preventative examinations, and it should be, because it can signal a threat much earlier than cholesterol or glucose. And how does trimethylglycine work? Well, trimethylglycine acts as a lifesaver, taking toxic homocysteine and transforming it into methionine. Methionine is then safely used or excreted from the body. This is one of the most effective pathways for lowering homocysteine levels. It was previously thought that very large doses, in the range of several grams of trimethylglycine per day, were needed to achieve the effect. However, newer analyses have shown that the effect is dose-dependent and occurs even with much smaller amounts. Thus, 1.5 grams of trimethylglycine reduces homocysteine levels by about 12%, 3 grams by about 15%, and 6 grams by about 20%. The results of available studies clearly indicate that even small, well-tolerated doses of trimethylglycine can exert a significant protective effect on the cardiovascular system and overall health. This is very important information because it means that effectiveness does not always require high doses or aggressive supplementation. Sometimes regularity and moderation are the key to achieving a therapeutic effect. What's more, clinical observations and numerous patient reports confirm the practical action of trimethylglycine. Reports of a clear reduction in arterial blood pressure after starting trimethylglycine supplementation are particularly frequent. This strengthens the hypothesis about its beneficial effect on blood vessels, homocysteine metabolism, and the regulation of endothelial function. These anecdotal observations, although they require further confirmation in large population studies, are consistent with the mechanism of action of trimethylglycine and support its potential cardioprotective application. In summary, trimethylglycine can be a valuable element of support for the cardiovascular system, and its action is noticeable even at small doses, provided it is appropriately selected for the body's needs and used regularly. Now I will explain why it is worth using trimethylglycine and NAD+ together. I call this approach stacking supplements for synergy. In this case, trimethylglycine supports methylation and NAD+ supports energy production in cells. So together they work more effectively than each one separately. Let's now touch upon more advanced knowledge about why trimethylglycine is essential in longevity protocols. One of the most important goals in the biochemistry of aging is to increase the level of NAD, or nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. This is often done through supplements such as NMN, which is nicotinamide mononucleotide, or NR, which is nicotinamide riboside. NAD is the fuel for our mitochondria, improving cellular energy and the activity of sirtuins, which are key for DNA repair and longevity. However, increasing NAD levels comes at a metabolic cost. To convert NMN into NAD, the body intensively uses methyl resources. In other words, we increase longevity on one hand, but deplete the supply of methyl groups on the other. And this is where trimethylglycine comes into play, which has a strong methyl donor, balances this process. Therefore, by combining TMG supplementation with NMN or NR, we allow for an effective increase in NAD levels while simultaneously replenishing the methyl pool that NMN consumes. This is a synergy that allows us to reap the benefits of both worlds without adverse side effects. For people who are already using advanced supplementation, TMG is no longer optional, it becomes a necessity. That is why conscious supplementation, based on knowledge about fundamental metabolic processes, is so important. Without it, even the best substances can do more harm than good. In the age of easy access to reliable medical sources, blindly taking supplements recommended by random people on the internet or friends with unverified knowledge should no longer happen. Well-chosen supplementation can support health, but it should be tailored to the body's needs, supported by research, monitored, and used with caution. Our body is a complex system. Interfering with its biochemistry without understanding the mechanisms of action is like repairing an engine in the dark. The risk of damage is high, and the benefits are random. Awareness, consultation with an appropriate specialist, and regular monitoring of laboratory parameters are the best investment in health and safety. It is worth pausing for another, often overlooked aspect of trimethylglycine's action and its effect on the intestinal barrier. In the world of patients, people talk about a leaky gut, and in medical circles, about increased intestinal barrier permeability and impaired tight junctions. These determine which substances can pass from the intestine into the blood and which should remain in the lumen of the digestive tract. New research shows that trimethylglycine can reduce inflammation in the intestine by inhibiting the excessive activation of inflammatory receptors, including TLR4, or toll-like receptor 4. It can strengthen the tight junctions between intestinal cells by increasing the expression of proteins such as agglutinin and claudin, and it can favorably influence the composition of the microbiota, which itself is of huge importance for immunity and metabolism. In other words, trimethylglycine not only supports methylation and homocysteine metabolism, it can also contribute to the regeneration and sealing of the intestinal barrier, which has enormous significance in clinical practice. For patients with irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, malabsorption disorders, food intolerances, or inflammatory bowel conditions, it can become an important element of supportive therapy. And let's remember that the intestine is not just a digestive organ. 70% of the immune system is concentrated there. Neurotransmitters are produced there, and our metabolic response begins there. Therefore, by taking care of the intestines, we influence the entire body, from immunity to the brain and hormones. And what about diet? Where can we naturally find trimethylglycine? Wheat bran has the highest content of trimethylglycine, over 1,300 milligrams per 100 grams. However, its consumption is problematic or impossible for many people due to the exacerbation of various system elements. Beets are the second source of trimethylglycine. They have about 200 milligrams of TMG per 100 grams. We should also remember that they are a rich source of oxalates and other anti-nutritional substances. However, I prefer animal sources of trimethylglycine. These include, for example, seafood, especially shrimp, mussels, oysters, and scallops. Fish, such as salmon, cod, and tuna, also contain significant amounts. It is also worth considering turkey and chicken meat, as well as pork, beef, and eggs as valuable sources of trimethylglycine in the daily diet. I will remind you here that animal products contain more choline than direct TMG, but the body can efficiently convert choline into TMG, supporting the methyl pool. As you can see, the content of trimethylglycine in food products is considerable, but compared to the daily requirement for people needing support for the methylation process, it is still practically unattainable. Therefore, sensible and individually tailored supplementation is important to achieve therapeutic doses. Finally, I would like to address practical issues regarding the proper and safe intake of supplements. So, what is the best time of day to take trimethylglycine? I will answer now. Due to its potential energizing effect on metabolism, trimethylglycine is best taken in the morning during breakfast. Another frequently asked question is whether a given supplement breaks a fast, and here, the simplest answer is the best. Trimethylglycine is an amino acid, so it will technically break a fast if the goal is to maintain zero caloric intake. However, due to its effect of improving insulin sensitivity, some people tolerate small doses of it. This requires an individual approach. And what about people with a confirmed MTHFR mutation? I will answer now. People with this mutation benefit the most from trimethylglycine supplementation because it provides an alternative independent methylation pathway via the BHMT enzyme, bypassing the faulty folate pathway. In summary, I would like to tell you how I see the future of this substance. Trimethylglycine is a compound with extraordinary multifunctionality. It is one of the few supplements that combines a powerful anabolic effect, such as the gain of lean muscle mass, a catabolic effect, which is fat burning, and a deep influence on longevity by lowering homocysteine levels and providing real strong support for the methyl pool. And this is not magic, but pure biochemical precision. What's next, you ask? The most advanced users often ask about the full protocol of combining various supplements to achieve maximum effects with a high safety profile. I think it is worth considering combining trimethylglycine primarily with creatine. Creatine also interacts with the methylation pathway and has a positive effect on metabolism. Interesting effects can be achieved by combining trimethylglycine with taurine. Studies suggest that taurine can increase the activity of the BHMT enzyme, responsible for the action of trimethylglycine, making it even more effective without the need to increase the dose. The combination I mentioned earlier, TMG with NMN-NR, is also useful. In this case, it is important to replenish the methyl pool while increasing NAD levels. And now, the most important thing. Have you ever tried trimethylglycine supplementation? Let me know in the comments. I am interested in your personal effects, as well as any unexpected positive or negative effects you have observed. Let's create a substantive knowledge base together. Thank you for the shared journey into this fascinating world. If this material helped you understand how this incredible biochemical switch works, subscribe to the channel and leave a thumbs up. See you in the next material.